Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum, and good evening. Probably it's evening time. My name is Dr. Mansoor Ahmad Hood. I'm working as assistant professor uh, at the ZBS Larkana in Management Science faculty. Actually, today we are here to give some knowledge about the research. So today's session will be about how to conduct the literature review. Usually, most of the students ask such this question from their teachers or from their supervisors that how effectively we can do literature review. They find a lot of difficulties while going for the literature review. So for this session, I have especially invited one of the really good researcher I personally know. And so I felt that he will be the right person to guide you and tell you about how to conduct effective literature review. So today's guest is Dr. Wahid Ahmad Syal, Abdul Wahid Syal. Sorry, Dr. Abdul
No
Wahid
problem.
Syal. So Dr. Abdul Wahid Syal is currently working as an associate professor at ILMA University, Karachi. He has done PhD from one of the leading university in China. Uh, I forget the name. Dr. Saab, can you tell me the
Uh,
name? Actually,
University of Science and
yeah,
Technology of China,
okay.
USTC.
University of Science and Technology is a top ranked it comes under the QS 100 ranking universities, and apart from that, he's also working as an additional director, or you can say director incubation center, and further, I will invite Dr. Vaid that he can share some knowledge about literature reviewing. Okay, Dr. Vaid, it's all yours now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mansoor. I'm really honored to have this opportunity to be part of the team today. So I am really thankful that Zabas Larkana provided me with this opportunity. Uh, so let's get on with the topic that we are going to discuss today. So, as Dr. Mansoor
Uh,
already discussed, the essence of doing an effective literature review that our students mostly
That's
face.
that's
Yes, sir.
there's a distortion from your side, I believe. Okay.
Is that okay now?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Okay, that may be because of the network.
Okay.
So, uh, I was saying that this has already been highlighted by Dr. Mansoor that our students normally face the issues when they are going for conducting literature review. So today I would try to share my experiences, my knowledge with all of you here that how effectively you can conduct a literature review for your thesis, for your research papers. So before going further, so I would like you to understand to have a look or maybe a little bit review that what we mean by reviewing literature. When we say that okay, this is a literature review we are going to do, we normally take this particular practice as a chapter that we have to go through this chapter. But despite the fact that this is a chapter always at number 2, but we always start with this practice. We start with reviewing the literature, exploring the various sources related with our topic. So let's have a quick review that what we mean. So when we are set to review the literature, we basically critically analyze the segment of the published body. Now we can say that all the published body regarding or related with any of the research area, any of the journal subjects, or any topic you can even think of or you intend to work on. So when you find the body of knowledge related with the particular topic that you want to work about. So that part of the knowledge, that body of the literature or the writings becomes the part of your literature. Now there could be several ways that how or which things you can take as your part of literature. So now, having understood that what we mean by reviewing a literature, so that was the critical analysis of the body of published knowledge that is related with our topic of interest. Now, there are several sources through which we can explore the literature. So now the sources include one of the primary literature sources, which are the reports, maybe conference proceedings or thesis that we are going to write or we have already written, or there may be some of the participants which intend to take up with their thesis. So that would be one of our primary sources. So for the part of secondary sources, we have like journal publications, we may have books, we may have some newspaper articles that may be related with our interest subject, the part that we are looking for. So, thirdly, we have some tertiary literature sources. Now, these are basically the search tools, the various means through which we can explore the literature, the body of published knowledge, the articles, books, proceedings, or theses that are relevant with our topic of interest, or they may be related to our your thesis that you are going to work on. So now, having understood that what could be the different sources that we may be using in our literature review chapter, so now afterwards, before we begin how we can actually do that, so let's have a look at that what are your requirements, what you actually need. Now here I would ask you to actually make a list that what is the requirement when you are reviewing the literature, when you are seeking or collecting the various published body, that may be articles, books, or even theses which have already been published. Now, when you are collecting those all those things or material that is relevant, now what you need to do with this? What are your requirements that you are going to perform? So that when you start with this, you need an introduction, you need to give the background of your study, your topic of interest, or your research question that you have taken up as your part of thesis, or it may be your overall thesis that is based on. So you need to have an intro, you need to define the background, and then you need to collect the summary of scholarly resources which are relevant with your topic of interest that you are working on. So you will collect all that particular body of knowledge which is relevant with your own topic. So after giving an intro about your topic, you need to have a summary of the resources that you have collected so far. Now that summary would be helping you to further take on that how you are going to discuss the various findings, various research gaps that you come up while you are reviewing the literature. Now, that source or that summary is also going to help you to evaluate the different sources. Like there may be several studies on one topic, the scholars or their findings may agree to some extent. On the other hand, there may be some scholars, there may be some research papers whose findings do not agree with the ones who have previously explored something. Now, again, there could be various reasons behind this. That there could be different research setting, there could be different levels of developments due to which the findings do not agree with each other. They may have some other reasons also behind that. So now, when we evaluate that summary of resources that we have collected, then we have to go for the conclusion. We have to see that how we can conclude the so far collected sources for the literature, the papers that we have gone through so far. So how we can conclude them, how we can logically give a flow to the findings of the previous scholars, and then we have to look that what are the probable questions, what are the probable issues that remain for us to solve, or we can identify that is what we call the research gap. So when we review and critically analyze the collected sources, then we come up with the decision that this might be the interesting gap to fill in. So then we have to conclude in a way that we come up with our own contribution that we will aid to the conversation in the shape of our own contribution. So these are the requirements that you need to know before you set on reviewing the literature. So you need to collect all those things. You need to stepwise think of them, and these things must be in your mind when you sit to review the literature. So let's move further. So now, since we have the idea that what the literature is, what could be the probable sources that we can obtain or find the required literature, and then again we have that idea that what when we are trying to understand what is literature, when we have the idea about different sources that can help us to collect the information that we need, and then we also had an idea that uh, when we are trying to understand this, then what is our requirement, what do we need to do for our literature review chapter. So how would we be putting the things in order? So we also had some understanding of what could be our probable requirement when we need to review the literature. So now let's have a look at how to do it. So now major works that have been published about your narrowed topic. Here we need we mean near narrowed topic, that because you first need to explore the findings, the research articles.
Excuse me,
Yes,
doctor. So sorry
yes.
to bother you. Are you sharing the slides because your slides are not moving? There's
Yes, of
I'm
course. I
ready.
think this is the I think oh, this I don't know why this problem.
Now it's moving.
So we discussed this the second one,
Can
the
you
definition.
can you go to next slide, slide number two? Before, like just now,
This one.
yeah.
So this
Fine
was
now.
the
Yeah.
okay. So we can have a quick review again if you think that we really missed. So this was the part of definition that we were trying to understand what is literature. I had some words on it that how we can define the literature review, that by critically analyzing the segment of published body that we have related with a specific topic that we are trying to research about. So again, these were the Dr. Saab, is it changing? Is the slide changing now?
Yes, this yeah definition. Yeah, sources of literature.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, please do let me know if the
Yeah. Sure.
slide is
Sure.
not
Sure.
changing. Okay.
No.
So these were the sources of literature that we discussed: primary literature, secondary, and the tertiary. That we have the different search tools like Google Scholar. We have so we already discussed this, so I think we better move on this. The fourth slide is the requirements that we discussed, that when we are trying to write the literature review, we need to have the introduction where we define the overall understanding of that topic, the works that have been done so far, and then we have to collect the summary of those resources that we have discussed so far here, and then based upon those sources or that summary of the resources, we need to further discuss and evaluate the sources, as in order to find out that, what are the findings of earlier research scholars, whether they have any agreements or disagreements on certain topics, and then we need to look at the reasons that why such things or such differences are available there, what could be the probable reasons. Then we may if it is relevant with your topic of research, then you may be looking at the differences of various research scholars, that what were the probable reasons due to which their findings came across in a different way. And then based upon the evaluation that we made, then we need to come up with our conclusion by highlighting our own contribution, because when we have a thorough review of the resources that are available so far in a certain topic or in certain area of research domain, then we need to come up with the conclusion that what are those things which have been addressed. We have to look up those issues which have already been addressed, and then we need to find out those research questions, those issues, problems which have not been addressed so far. Because our literature review conclusion must present with something as a new to the conversation, something as a novelty, something as a potential contribution to the existing body of knowledge. Because if we are not going to contribute in a potential way, we do not have any significant change or amendment to the body of existing knowledge, then surely our hard earned work, hard earned literature review is not going to make any difference. So, in order to be able to make the difference, we need to come up with something new. We need to add something to the conversation, to the body of knowledge, or to the existing body of published works. So I hope that the new slide is visible. That's so now how to do it.
Yes,
Okay. So now
we
we
cannot, that's I cannot see it, like we cannot see your next slides. Requirements, we can see only requirement slides.
I don't know why is this
Yeah, now it's changing.
now it's okay. Now you can see.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. So now we just take a little review that now we had the opportunity to understand that what is literature itself, what are the different sources that could help us to achieve or to obtain the body of published work, what could be the different tools that may be helpful for us when we are searching the relevant literature. So now let's understand how we can do it. So now the new slide, the purpose, is it? I think it's visible. So we are up to the new slide now.
Yeah.
So, okay. So when we are taking all those efforts stepwise, the requirements, when we think of the requirements, that there may be, you may think there are a lot of things that we need to take care of. We need to evaluate and then conclude and then come up with something that is novel, that has some potential contribution. So after all, what is the purpose of that? So the first purpose that we are talking about is to improve your own understanding. Now, if you have any sort of, we can say XYZ topic that you want to have any research about. So for doing that research, the first and the topmost important thing is that you need to update yourself about that topic. You need to improve your understanding, because if you have a better understanding of what you are going to make research about, or what you are going to maybe you are working on your thesis or any research article that you are interested to continue. So after having your own knowledge and understanding improved, you will be able to better demonstrate your knowledge. Because if you have the clarity in your understanding would enable you to communicate in a better and effective or efficient manner to others. Others may be able or comfortable with your statement, what you are trying to convey, your message to other people. So the third purpose for doing all this hard work is to bring your reader up to date. Now, when you have a very thorough review of the existing body of knowledge, you have looked at the pros and cons of a particular topic of research. You have given all the information that from a certain period of time, maybe a decade or two, you have tried to collect all the important articles that you feel that they are relevant with your topic and they have some potential contributions, or they may have some agreements or disagreements on the various issues. When you synthesize and summarize all that literature into a single chapter, then your readers would really come or become updated when they read your literature review, when you are giving them your own understanding. And after that, above all, you would logically connect whatever the findings, the evaluations you make by reviewing the literature that is published by other people. So now you logically connect with that previous finding or previous level of knowledge, and then you present your readers with something new or novel that is certainly going to add some potential value to the existing body of knowledge. So these would be the purposes that you for that you are reviewing the literature in a more effective and efficient manner. So now the next slide is organizing your literature. So now, since you have understood the purpose, after understanding the requirements, you also understood the purpose. We discussed it, and then we have there another way that now, after having understood the requirements and the purpose of reviewing in an effective manner, how we can organize, because that is a very important segment of literature. Because how hard you are trying, maybe you have downloaded all the relevant and the updated literature is available with you, but what if you are not able to organize it in a proper manner? Then the literature review may not do the needful, may not fulfill the purpose that it is intended for. So, therefore, learning to organize in a better way is also a very important segment. So, here we have some techniques that we may apply when we are trying to organize or literature review, because after collecting a lot of sources, after going through lots of books, research articles, thesis, and so on, or any other related material that you think could be related or important for you, so after reviewing all that, now you need some techniques to organize it in a better way, in an efficient way. Now this organization could be some uh, area specific, because if you are publishing any sort of research article, that may probably have some journal specific requirements to organize your literature review or the overall research paper. So that could be again the area specific according to your own research topic. So now we are trying to have a look at all the possible techniques that could be utilized. So the first among those is the chronological way. That is when you are going through the various research material and you are trying to put according to the date, or maybe you are putting the things year wise. You are trying to come top to down or from bottom to up. So whatever the strategy you adopt here, but that could be one of the technique that you can organize your literature. And other technique could be according to the advancements. Here, that highlights or emphasizes the developments which have been made in any specific area of research so far. And now again, it depends on you, or it depends on the area specific requirements of organizing your literature review. That could be from the recent developments to the last ones, or they may be requiring you to talk about the developments from beginning to end. Whatever the requirement is there, but you can follow accordingly if you are if you are organizing your literature review in terms of the advancements, the developments which have been made so far. Another technique could be the geographical. Maybe to your specific area of research, you collect all the information, and then you think that let's start with some of the developed countries to see that how they have reshaped their requirements, their strategies according to my area of research. And you see, accordingly, you try to mention the findings, the research problems, or the research gives in a way that is related with the different locations. you can organize accordingly. And then you can see that there may be some other problems, some other issues which are related with the countries which are still developing or underdeveloped countries. And then you can come up with a comparative analysis also, that these are the differences amongst the evaluation by developed countries or developing countries or the third world ones. Then you can give your own reasoning that why these differences prevail there, what are the reasons that these differences remain unaddressed so far. And then you can come up with the solutions, come up your own research questions based on the previous understanding, based on the gaps that you have highlighted so far. So when you are able to understand that what gaps were available there, and on the basis of those research gaps, how you can come forward, how can you be able to take the body of knowledge of at least one step forward. So again, I would emphasize that a substantial contribution to the body of knowledge is important. All these techniques, whatever you adopt, but that must include some part of the contribution, some substantial addition to the information that is already available on the topic that you are working on. So let's move on to the next slide. So again, I hope that this the slide has changed and it is visible. So after discussing the various techniques which could help us to organize our literature review chapter in a more efficient and effective manner, so how we can structure, so what should be the probable structure. So, as usual, we already discussed this part, but let's have a look again. Then we would start with the introduction that would give the overall view of the topic, the background, that what you are working on, and then you have to show the big picture in the sense that you give the references, give the consideration to all those available resources or the latest developments to your research field. And then you mention all those research articles or books which have been published in your area specific topic. And then you have to discuss either agreements, disagreements, or different findings. Or after having discussed the different findings, you would narrow down your topic in a way that highlights the questions which have not been addressed so far. So now, when we come up to the questions, when we come up to the problems that have not been addressed so far, that is our own contribution that we are going to make. The reason behind narrowing down the topic and coming up to the questions which have not been addressed so far, that actually takes the readers towards the problems which are not solved yet. And now this is the time when you talk about your contribution, that based on the review of above literature, you have come up to the certain questions which have not been addressed so far. And based on your understanding, your research gave identification. Now this is time for you to propose that what way you can overcome these problems, what are the best ways to address those issues. And then according to that, you have to develop your own theme, that how you are going to address those problems, what are your measures, what steps you are going to take, maybe what novelty your research is going to make. If we just say it simply that what difference you are going to make, then you have to define this in the theme of your own contributions overview. And then according to the framework that you have developed, there may be some sub themes that you would like to highlight and bring into the information of your readers. So that would again be depending on the topic that you have chosen. So next we would move towards the conclusion. So when you have highlighted that these are the questions that have not been addressed so far, and now you give your own strategy, your own measures that how you are going to overcome these problems, how you are going to address them. Then you discuss and evaluate in the light of your own findings, and accordingly, as a part of your potential contribution, you will discuss that what are the strengths of your contribution, if there are any weaknesses that we normally say as a part of limitation, which could be again different according to the topic or according to the area of research that you are in. So you have to be discussing the strengths, weaknesses, or anything that you find it is missing is still, and then you put forward into your recommendation that the next research could consider so and so issues, which, because this is for sure that in one literature review you cannot cover everything regarding that topic of research. Everything cannot be covered into a single study. This is impossible. So therefore, this is also important part that you mention that what could be the probable weaknesses that you are going to make, or what could be the probable things which are missing, and those missing or weaknesses would be put in the part of recommendation when you are trying to finalize your review part. Well, I hope that so far it is going well, and let's move on to the writing process. So we have moved to the new slide. So now, having understood this, that how we can structure our part of literature review, so let's understand that what could be the best way or a better way to get on with the writing process. So this is how where we start from. So as we discussed the various sources of information that would help us to collect the desired literature, and then we have to collect them, organize into the different either segments, subsections, or chapters, that is again according to your requirement. And then you analyze. Now once you have let's say downloaded 50 or 100 articles, now if you are going through each article thoroughly, it would really take time. So therefore, we need to learn that how we can identify whether this article, this book is relevant with our research or not. So first step would include that only we have the download. We just collect the information either in shape of articles, books, or so on. And the next step is to analyze. Now this analysis could be that you go through the abstracts, you go through a little part of the introduction, you could go through what are the findings, you could look at the model or framework of the study, that what new they have done. You can have a look at the discussion, that how they have come up with the new things. You may have some words from the conclusion part. Now all this quick and short review within a minute, within a couple of minutes, that can enable you to understand at least that is this article relevant with you or not. So then we have to go through this exercise and to sort out that which articles are relevant with our area of research, would be useful for us, then we have to put them aside. And then after we think that okay, we have now the number of article is really more than enough, this is sufficient for us to get on with our review process, then you would start going through the articles thoroughly in order to understand what they have done, what research gave they highlighted, what shortcomings they found out, and what were the best ways they addressed those problems. So this would develop your understanding. And in the same way, you would also be able to arrange the resources that you have collected so far. You would you would be able to have the idea that now after your critical analysis, the identification of relevance within the articles, now how you are going to arrange them. And then the last part would be for you to summarize and synthesize that, because now that for sure every literature chapter would be really lengthy into many of the pages. A lot of references would be there, a lot of discussion would be there. Now, as your pod, now you are going to read that, go through that literature. You have to generate your own idea and then come up with your own summary about that literature review that you have just gone through, and then you have to put your remarks in a summarized way. So when you are putting your summary on each article, on each book that you have gone through, now this is time for you to synthesize the information, to keep a logical connection between all the information that you have collected so far, or the information that you think that really makes a difference, what I am going to do, or it is going to support your theoretical foundation or your own contribution that you are going to make to any certain area of research. So these are the four steps. That first we have to collect the information, we have to analyze and see that what is the relevance within those materials, and then accordingly you have to arrange, summarize, and synthesize. So let's have a look on the next slide. So I have also put some examples, like how you can summarize, synthesize, or how you can identify. So this is one of our recent publication in the Sage Open Journal. So I would like to share just the framework that we have actually made some modifications with that. Now, the above, I hope this is visible to all the friends here.
Yes,
So you
yes, yes,
see
it's visible.
in the above line, you see the seven variables. So actually, this model is the UTA UT2, the Unified Theory of Acceptance and Use of Technologies. So I hope that if any of us here is working on some technology management projects, he would certainly have this idea. So now, in the basic, in the main, or we can say the original model, now here in the middle, that is behavioral intention, the basic. And the last one is behavioral use. So now, after going through the vast literature, after reviewing a lot of studies, we as a team noticed that almost all the research scholars have used the as it is model to the different research settings. So they have put the same model you taught to in various research settings, and they have come up with the more or less same findings. So, as I discussed that after evaluating, we need to come up the differences between the resources that we have gone through. We need to make some difference. We need to come up with some novelty, some change, or at least our work should add some substantial contribution to the existing body of knowledge. So, having discussed all those things, we decided to connect or to find their theoretical support of all these seven variables with the consumer satisfaction towards the M-Taxi services. So we actually put a new variable and just we try to find the theoretical foundation of that one variable with all the above seven variables. And then at the end, instead of using the behavioral use, we tried to use their intention to recommend. Now, first we logically connected the theoretical support of all those seven variables with the consumer satisfaction towards mobile app based services, and then on the basis of their level of satisfaction, we tried to explore their intention. If, like, we can generally say that if any of us is satisfied with the services of XYZ company, so it would help that consumer to may have a positive perception on the mind, and then after having a positive attitude towards a certain brand or service, they consumers develop a positive attitude, and they have recommended that particular either brand, service, or application in their circle of influences wherever they can recommend to. So we not only directly had the theoretical support of the above seven factors relation with the consumer satisfaction, but we also tried it in a little more different way. That was to find the mediating relations of above seven factors with the consumer's intention of recommending a mobile app based services. Now this variable of consumer satisfaction was helping us to understand the mediating power of those seven variables with the consumer's intention of recommending that mobile app services. So that was a small example to let you understand in a more clear way that after going through this vast activity of reviewing the literature, what way we should come up with something new, something different. So this paper would also be available. I would definitely share it with Dr. Mansoor. And if any of the participant has further questions on this, they may ask me. They may send the queries to me at any time. I would share, but definitely Dr. Mansoor has all the information that you would need to connect. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So the scholarly articles. So so I think this is a very general slide that all of you would be really familiar with the parts or the segments of any research article. So definitely we start with the article title, then abstract, introduction, or then introduce any problem that we are trying to address, and then literature review and its purpose, rationale, and development of hypothesis. And accordingly we start with the methodologies, which methodology would be suitable for research, the results, discussion, and references. So these are all the segments that you would find in any scholarly research article. Now I hope this view is clear. So now let's look at some tips that would be helpful for you when you are trying to go through an extensive literature review activity. So some helpful tips, as these are actually the things that normally I take care of whenever I am working on any research article. So the first thing is to keep on taking the notes, because your literature review will require you a very extensive study, extensive reading. So there would be a lot of articles that you would be reading as you go by reviewing your literature review activity. So any article that you read it fully, you go through thoroughly. Now, it is quite probable that after reviewing a couple of articles, you may mix the things, you may forget some of the points that at the time of reading, you really thought that these are very important points, and I must know that they may be useful for me when I'm writing my own literature review part. So for that purpose, to handle that issue, we have to be taking the notes. If you are going through any research article or anything that you find could be useful for your own review chapter, then keep on taking the notes with their references, because references is very important in scholarly research. You cannot just put the statement without any reference. Anything you say must be backed by a suitable reference, must have some reference where it originated from. So therefore references are very important. And another thing, that focus on the latest developments in your field. If you are working on the review literature review chapter, then you need to explore the latest research, the latest trend on your research area, to see that what are the trending topics, what are the trending ways how the existing scholars have tried to address. And generally when you come up with a new research that is published in your area, you would definitely have the opportunity to look at the future recommendations. There may be very important recommendations suggestions for you, waiting for you in the recommendation section. You may be able to get some idea that you really think is very important, and it will make some difference, add some value to the existing body of knowledge. And another part, whatever you read and you try to take note, you try to put the concept of that understanding, that concept of that note into your own literature chapter. Do not put in the same wording. In other words, they avoid putting the things only copying and pasting. So you have to go through in a way that you are able to write the concept of that idea, the perception in your own words, so that at later stages you do not have any need to go revise your whole part or some parts of your literature or whole thesis. A lot of students avoid this practice. They just try to complete the parts. They just put the different things from different sources and just organize into a way that is required for their own thesis. And at the end, when they have the similarity report, a lot of things go wrong. Your whole perception, your supervisor, your mentor would definitely think that this is a very non-serious attitude, and your work is only a copy paste. Now, on the other hand, there may be your idea may be unique. Your idea, your framework may have some potential contribution to the body of knowledge if it is published, if it is completed in true spirit. But because of the activity, because of the tendency that you did not avoid plagiarism at all, at the end, your perception, your position is really spoiled. So I would suggest you to keep refrain from such activity. Anything that you want to give your concept about, go for your own style, your own way to express the things. And the last tip I would like to give is, whatever the things you are reading, they must be downloaded into a certain software of referencing. It could be EndNotes, it could be Mendeley, whatever you think is suitable for you or you are comfortable with use of the software like this. So if you know what is good for you, if you are able to read those articles and download into your referencing software, at any time you can come back and look at the things that you really studied before. And your referencing software will also help you to aid the recitation within your document when you are writing your own review. You don't need to again go on the Google Scholar or see how to download this reference or the citation, and then you see. This will also help you to avoid the manual inclusion of references into your literature review. So it is going to help you a lot if you are taking this on a serious note. Okay. So at the end, this is a 7-minute challenge. So as we have discussed that uh, by going through any research article from the title, because we on the previous slide we saw that what are the parts or segments of any scholarly article. So now I would ask you to download any research article afterwards and put your understanding over it and send it to Dr. Mansoor. He would certainly discuss with me. So this is to understand. This way you can evaluate that either you are able to understand from the title this is your relevant or not. Are you able to understand out of the abstract? Because abstract comprises the four parts of the research article or your thesis. Now, the first one is the purpose that you are working on this research for. The second deals with the methodology that you have utilized for your research. The third would focus on the findings that you have come up after reviewing the extensive literature or the overall paper segments that you have gone through. And the last one is the originality that shows your contribution. So within the 7 minutes, I believe that you would be able to summarize what the research question is about, what was that paper mainly focusing on, the ideas, what were the core concepts behind that study, or you would be able to also find that anything that you thought that should have been there but it is not. And what could be the probable conclusion, what was the conclusion, either those things what the authors claimed to find, to address, have they really addressed those issues or not. And at the end you would find it that it is useful for you or not. And this could also help you to include the most relevant articles into your literature review chapter. So I hope that I came up with some of the good ideas that would be helpful for you. Thank you very much for your patience.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. It was really a fruitful session. Actually, I was listening carefully each and everything. But actually, if I ask one question from you, that usually student have misconception about literature review. The first thing they ask from their supervisor that, okay, sir, how many pages are required to write the literature review? 2 pages, 3 pages. There's a misconception that they have no idea. Another is that how to put any idea which you are getting from another source, like from different research paper or thesis. So how to put that idea in your own words, as you discussed about the similarity index and pledge, that usually student face these problems in their research papers or in thesis. So what will you will recommend?
Of course, sir, I would like to say that first of all, when those students who really keep on asking, sir, how many pages should be the literature,
Mhm.
and this is a general question that we
Yeah.
face every day whenever we are having the thesis students. So this is because they fail to understand the essence of the thesis, essence of research. What they are required to do, that is not only a part of assignment. They just keep realize that this is a burden on them and how fast they can get rid of this activity, and that's all. So they do not think that their literature review, their thesis would be converted into a better publication, and that is going to really add some value to the existing body of knowledge. So I believe that if we are successful in convincing our students to understand the significance of carrying out a research project, either it is thesis based or any research article. So if they understand that what we actually mean when we are trying to review the literature, so we are actually trying to find out the problems which have not been addressed so far. So if we are not that much careful, or if we are not that much critical while analyzing the existing body of knowledge, we are, if we are only focusing on 3 pages, 5 pages, and that's it. If our teacher says okay it should be at least 5 pages, and they think that okay 5 pages are complete and they do not need any longer to explore more literature, explore more things or problems that are unaddressed so far. So this is again a very negative aspect, how the way our students do their literature. So this, for this part I would emphasize on their enhancing their understanding that why we are actually carrying out the literature review. Others have already worked on this, so why do we need to review their work? So if they understand the reason behind this, then I believe they will not be asking that, sir, how many pages should it contain. And this way they would be able to come up with some more productive ideas, that how they can justify their contribution, how they can make difference and add some positive value in the existing body of knowledge. And the secondly, the second question, that how to include idea in their own understanding, or in their own frame of work. So the first thing, they are really interconnected with each other. If they understand the significance, that we are not there only to copy paste or paraphrase the certain chapter and give it to our teacher that okay, that's it, our job is done. So as long as they understand that this is only exercise of paraphrasing and then giving it to our supervisor, he would go through plagiarism check and tell us, okay, still you are 10% above and you need to decrease. And then their task is again on paraphrasing. They do not think of any novelty or any creativity that they are doing their thesis should have. I always tell my students that your thesis will follow you throughout your life. Everywhere you go, there would be certainly a question about your thesis. So that is a very important thing to understand the significance. And then once they understand the significance, they would be able to create. They will not be only copying and pasting, but they would be able to create the new ideas and put them into their own words. And once they are able to do this, I hope that such issues will be eliminated.
Yeah, yeah, you are right, Doctor. Usually they face such kind of problem. And once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and for your precious time. I know that you have busy schedule.
Actually,
So thank you
nowadays
so much.
you know that our thesis vivas are going, so no
Yeah.
problem. It was my pleasure taking time for this activity, and if there are any more questions, I would be happy to take. Uh,
Then later on, if there are any, if there are questions, I will communicate with you.
Please do let
And
me know.
yeah,
And
sure, sure.
Dr. Saab, I shared with you one feedback link also. I would
Mhm.
request you to share with the participants so that
Yeah, sure, sure.
they give a response. Maybe the things which I really should have mentioned but did not, their
Mhm.
recommendation would mean a lot to me.
Sure, sure. So again, I would say that maybe in future I will invite you for another session.
Of course, sir. Of course, I would be really happy to be part of the team here. So
Yes,
it would be my pleasure and honor.
and thank you from my side and from my institute as well, from Zemis as well, for coming and joining this session. Thank you so much, and take care and Allah Hafiz.